Hold on. All right. That's better.
Well, thank you so much for being here, coming to American Songwriter.
Thank you.
It's glad to have you here. We have a lot to talk about, so I want to dive into the album first. Let's start with Butter Miracle, the complete suites. Now, talk about how this came to fruition. You had Butter Miracle Suite 1 4 years ago. Then you decided to come up with 5 more songs to add to it and made a complete album. So how did that, what was your mindset and how did this all come to fruition?
Well, I mean, I wrote the suites just as kind of, the suite as just a challenge to, it seemed like an interesting compositional challenge, and I wasn't even sure if it was going to work, you know, I'd never done anything like that before. And it turned out great. Process was kind of interrupted by the pandemic, which I think New York shut down the day we finished recording. The couple days before that, we were watching the news in the studio. Trump was at the CDC saying he didn't want people getting off that cruise ship. And we were like, wow, we better get everybody out of here because it looks like things are really going to shut down. And so we got everybody home. I mean, I live in New York, so I was there. And I didn't really think of it as being anything else. I really liked it. I thought it was a standalone thing. But the pandemic ended and I went back to England. I wrote the suite on my friend's farm. He has a farm in the west of England. Okay. And I went back there for a visit and I had a piano there and I just started working again. And I wrote most of these songs. And I thought, okay, this is going to be the other half of that record. And then on the way home, I stopped in London. My friends were making a record, and I went to sing on it, this band, Gang of Youths. Mm-hmm. And a little while after I got home, they sent me the finished record, and it really knocked me out. It was so good. It's called Angel in Real Time. It's a brilliant record. And I just got to thinking that the songs I had just written weren't at the same level his songs were. They weren't good enough, and I'd never really had that before. Usually if I don't think something's good enough, I just don't finish it. If I do finish it, it ends up on a record, and it's kind of how it works. But I just started really doubting these songs, and I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I rewrote Under the Aurora was a different song. I kept most of the verses and the music to the verses, but I completely rewrote the chorus, different music, different lyrics. And that was much better, I thought. And I tightened up Spaceman in Tulsa. It had all these different parts. It was a much more long, so it had a verse, a pre-chorus, a post-pre-chorus, a chorus, and then a post-chorus part. And by the time you got back around to the verse, it just felt like it had been sitting there for a while. And I really honed that down to being a much tighter song. And Boxcars, I thought that Virginia Through the Rain was perfect, and I didn't touch that. But the song Boxcars, I really wasn't sure of. My ambitions for these songs were a little bit ahead of my ability as a musician to play them. So I had them in my head conceptually, but I couldn't really play them on the piano except for Virginia and feel whether they were actually good. You know, they seemed great in my head, but I had a lot of doubts about it, and I think my confidence got a little shaken by that feeling the necessity to rewrite, which I hadn't really done before like that. So I sat on them for 2 years, just not having confidence in them and just being sort of embarrassed about them, and I didn't send them to the band. And then I wrote With Love from A to Z, which is the opening song on the record, and I loved it. And I thought, okay, this is great, and it's got to go on a record, and I have got to figure out what the deal is with the other songs. So I called Jim and Millard, our bass player and drummer, and I called Immer, and I said, I need everybody to come to New York, and I just need 4 or 5 days at my house with you guys. I just got to play these songs. I can't tell because I can't play them. But if I could play them with you guys, I could figure out whether they're what I think they are. And so they came to New York a week later, 2 weeks later, and one by one, the songs just were leaping off the instruments in my living room. We were just doing it in my living room and recording things, and they just sounded great. We got a friend of Immer's who's an engineer at a studio a few blocks away to come over and sort of demo it up. I never demo at home except for on my iPhone. And we actually demoed these songs, and they were just great. We were so excited. We're like, okay, we got to go to the studio right away. And so we did, and the record was done in 11 days. So even though we had, it got delayed by the actual making of this record was the fastest record we've ever made. The suite was less than 2 weeks in the studio, I think 12 or 13 days. And the side A, the Sweet Tooth, was maybe 11 days. It was so quick. But it just got really delayed by 2 years. That was all in the spring. We did all that. The guys came in like January, and we recorded in maybe February, and it was done, and we did a mix of it before we left for tour. And over the course of the tour, I just realized I didn't think the mixes were great. And when we got back from tour, we ended up finding Chad Blake to remix it, and it did such a great job that we ended up having him go back and remix the suite as well, because they didn't sound great next to each other anymore. And as soon as he did that, the record was just leaping out of the speakers, and we were all so excited. But it's funny, it was just like one thing or another delaying it, like mixing it wrong. We mixed it in a weird studio where the room didn't sound as good when we got home. And so that delayed it over the summer. But it just seemed like everything that went on with this record was so fast, but things kept delaying everything. Me sitting on the songs for 2 years, mixing it wrong.
Right.
And then once we mixed it, realizing, we better remix the suite now too, because that's really good.
It was like that.
Yeah, and then but everything was so quick when we actually did it. But it definitely took 4 years.
So were the guys like, "What are you doing? Where's the music? What's happening?"
Sort of, but we're pretty busy. We were touring anyways. Yeah. We were playing a lot. It's not like we weren't. We never really take a year off or anything. So we were working the whole time. And it's not like the world is clamoring for Counting Crows records. At this point, we put them out when we put them out. I think I'd gotten a little discouraged too after. Somewhere Under Wonderland, we probably had the best record company we've ever had that did the best job anyone's ever done putting, the promotion of a record together. Yeah. And it still didn't make much of an impact on the culture, even though we had a #1 hit at AAA with I was Elevator, but sorry, we didn't. But, it was just like they did as good a job as you could possibly do. And it just got me thinking, maybe we really haven't figured out how to put out records right now. We need to think about the strategy of doing that, because it's not the same as just put it out, work it at radio, and go on tour. There's a lot of different things that go into it nowadays, and I didn't think we'd really mastered that back when we did Somewhere Under Wonderland, and I thought we needed to put some thought into that anyways.
How do you feel about that now? Do you feel like you've got a grasp at least?
Trying. I was so ahead of. It's just a part of getting older that you lose touch somewhat with how the culture works. Like when I was starting out in 1996, I was on the Counting Crows message boards on AOL, which is social media before social media. Like I realized, here's a way to talk directly to our fans. Yeah. And I started doing that and built a community, long before social media was even invented. And then when Twitter came out, I built that from nothing to 2 million, just myself. And we were, but then I didn't really grasp what Instagram was when it came out. You can think of yourself as being ahead of the curve, but if you're not a kid, you're not really in touch with how the popular zeitgeist works. Nothing wrong with it. It's just that they're always going to have a culture that moves faster and is more exciting that way because they're more involved in it, and
they grew up with it.
Yeah, so you think you're ahead of everything, and then it's Instagram. I didn't really get that at first, and we're really behind on that. And then TikTok, and we're really behind on that. And it takes time to catch up. During the pandemic, I started making a lot of cooking videos on our Instagram, which was like,
that's great.
Oh yeah, this is a much more an active and engaging way to work on this social media app, and. Watching over the last few years, realizing people were doing clips from their songs and just on their phones, lip syncing, singing into the, and that's a really good way on TikTok that also works for Instagram, and so, I worked on that a lot more for this. We filmed during the making of the record, everything. We have a videographer who works with us, and so we had him filming everything, but I looked at those videos and thought, that's not really immediate enough. It needs me, my face. I love the clips from the studio, but for the vocal, you need a face doing it. I'd learned enough to know, let's shoot a bunch of stuff at my house in front of a screen of just me. And we'll mix that in with the studio stuff, and that'll make a better video for socials. Yeah. And it does. It's much more personal.
Yeah.
And so you're
learning it.
You learn stuff as you go along, but you're always going to be there's a moment when you're in the middle of everything, and then there's a moment where you're on the outside of those things, and you just have to do the best you can, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just keep putting the music out, and
Yeah.
you'll gravitate towards it.
I mean, I know how to do that.
Yeah, there you go.
just-
And you do it well. Is there a song on the album that you learned something about yourself while writing it that stands out to you?
Well, I mean, I think it's true of every song. Like, you learn to write about different kinds of things because you're fascinated by them and they pop up. Like, I never think thematically when I'm writing. I never think thematically when I'm making a record, but I can look back at every record and see the themes because they're there. It's just because it's a snapshot of my life at that moment.
Yes.
And how what our band is fascinated with at that moment. And you can see, musical themes. And I mean, I think for me on this record, it was probably to a certain extent the Tall Grass, and to a certain extent With Love from A to Z. So it's the opening songs on each side, which were really the inspirations for the rest of them. It was the Tall Grass and how I experimented with the end of that song that got me to want to write a suite, because I wrote the song one day, and then I came back the next day and I was playing it, and as I got to the ending, I was messing around with the chords, and I started singing this line, Bobby was a kid from round the town, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. Maybe this is a longer song like Palisades Park where it has different movements. And after a while I realized, no, this is actually a different song, Elevator Boots. But it's really cool how it just flowed right out of the Tall Grass. What if I make a whole series of songs that do that? That would be a really cool challenge. Like each song kind of
flows to the next.
Yeah, and defines and sort of suggests where the next song's going. And that was really fascinating for me, like as a composer, the challenge of it. And to a certain extent, With Love from A to Z, at a time when I was like really uncertain about my writing because of rewriting those other songs and sitting around for a couple years, it felt like a real statement of purpose, like a State of the Union, where we're at. Like it felt to me a lot like Round Here. It's a very different song, but it's real like a portrait of the artist as a young man, old man, middle-aged man, whatever it is. Like it seemed like this is a statement of where I am in my life as a whole. It seems really important to me, and so then I got to get off my ass and fix the rest of it.
Right. Is that about a specific person from Love?
Z's Zoe, my girlfriend, but it's really about With Love from A to Z, about life is from A to Z. It's just where I am.
Right. It was perfect, because that's what when I read the title With Love from A to Z, I was like, oh, alphabet, A to Z, the whole encompasses everything. But then as I was listening to it, I'm like, I wonder if he has someone in his life who starts with a Z.
Yeah, I mean,
so
that's Zoe. And it's about
okay.
that. It's about a bunch of my friends that get, name checked in it, and things about them. My friend Curtis is a trumpet player who plays the solo on Angel of 14th Street. There's a bit in there about my friend Dave Leo Pepe, who's the lead singer for Gang of Youths, which had a big effect on this record.
Yes.
And Chris Caraba is name checked in there too. Is the singer for Dashboard Confessional, is one of my best friends, who I've been living with all weekend. My girlfriend and I have been with his family all weekend. I realized it's a weird thing. In the last few years, I had really spent a lot of time bouncing stuff back and forth with 5 or 6 of my best friends who are songwriters. Matt Susich and Sean Barnard were the indie New York guys. Stephen Kellogg from Stephen Kellogg and the Sixers, Chris
Yep.
from Dashboard, and Dave from Gang of Youths. We've all been sending each other stuff as we work on it and finish it, and singing on each other's records, and just it's been a real nice camaraderie of group of friends. So I realized how important that was to me, and it just shows up in the song in a lot of ways.
Nice to have talented friends that can do
Yeah,
that.
no, it's good to have peers,
Yeah, it's like a text chain group that just writes music. But I did want to talk. Was Chris the one whose closet you hid in for the tornado? We had tornadoes here in Nashville. It was really bad. So we were talking about that earlier. But I did want to talk about the first single that you put out, Spaceman in Tulsa. First single in 5 years that you guys put out. Why did you want that one to be the one that re-intros Counting Crows and exemplifies the album?
Oh, it wasn't me. It was.
Okay.
I love that song. I think it's a great single. But
It is.
as soon as we put the record, as everybody got the record, my managers, the record label, the publicist, everyone was like, Spaceman in Tulsa, it's a hit. And we really love Under the Aurora, that's a hit. And I was like, wow, you got one song that says motherfucker 90 times, and the other one's 6.5 minutes long or something. These are not the optimum choices for radio. I guess it doesn't matter nowadays because a lot of it takes place on YouTube.
Streaming
a lot of it
and-
takes
yeah.
place on streaming, and a lot of it takes place on Instagram, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter on those what you say, but I had to. I'm like, okay, fine. You really. This is like when we put out this Desert Life, and everyone loved Mrs. Potter's Lullaby, and they wanted a single, but I'm like, it's 8 minutes long, and they're like, we can edit it. I was like, if you edit 3 minutes off the song, it's still 5 minutes long. You know, does not sound like the ideal song for a single, but
Right.
fine. If it's what you guys want, we'll do it. We actually went in to cut like a clean version of it, which is a lot of work because there's a lot of motherfuckers in there. Like it's not just one or two. They're everywhere. And we were feeling really put upon doing it, Immer and I. And then we actually came up with all this stuff that actually turned it into this interesting Bowie track that we were like, wow, should we keep some of the clean version? Because this is really good. I like this a lot. But yeah.
It's so funny because that's what I love about that song is you just get to belt out motherfucker left and right, and I'm like maybe that's why he wanted to do it, just to get his anger out.
I just love the song. You know,
a
it's
great
like
song.
you know, and it's about like, you know, rock and roll, and there's a lot of us that grew up with difficult stuff as we were kids, and a lot of people who are artists go through trauma in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And in their youth, I'm sure a lot of those people like me wondered how adult life was going to work out for them because they were fucked. You know, they were messed up and they had problems and they didn't work. Things in them didn't work the way it worked with other people. And art, for a lot of us, gave us a life, you know, and in this case, in the song, rock and roll, you know, and the song's kind of about that, the transformative metamorphosis that a lot of us got out of, you know, art.
Right.
It just seemed like the right words. Like, it was like a joyous declaration of, not even really anger, just a joyous declaration of like,
Yeah.
this has been, I'm 30 years into it. It's not just that it worked out for like 6 months and a one hit single. I had a life based on playing music, you know, and it saved me.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty cool.
So do you use songwriting as a form of therapy?
No, you know, I get asked that a lot. I don't think it's cathartic at all, but if I have to
Okay.
choose between a day where I feel terrible and a day where I feel terrible but I write a song, you know, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
You know, it's a productive life. I mean, it's been it just means that those things don't ruin everything. They're not the defining aspect of you. You know, it's fine. I mean, I've spent 30 years playing rock and roll, you know, and I've been successful for a really long time. What will define me in my life is not a series of failures, but a career that made a difference in, well, obviously in my life, but also it turns out in a whole bunch of other people's lives, you know, and that was the unexpected part. But it's a different way of defining yourself than just like mental illness and failure, you know, which is what it looked like when I was a kid.
Right. And how does that feel to you to know that just by you getting it out and putting it in song is helping so many people?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard. I mean,
Or do you not want that pressure?
no, I mean, well, it doesn't really pressure because I don't really think about it when I'm writing. I'm only thinking about
Okay.
me, you know, I'm just thinking about stuff and how I feel about it and how I express myself and,
Yeah.
you know, what my life feels like. And then I do this really bizarre thing where I rhyme it, you know, like, which is a strange way to go through your life. It's a strange job to have. But, you know, it just turns out that other part's true. You know, it's funny, when I was starting out, a lot of people, I call the record business the land of bad advice, you know, and I got a lot of it. And one of the things people told me was, oh, we really love your music, but your songs are too personal. You use too many proper names, you
Really?
talk about too many specific places. You should stop that because people aren't going to relate to it because it's not their life. And I was like, that seems really stupid, so it fits. But that's kind of advice you got. There were a lot of people who thought that my songs were too personal and so no one would relate to them. It turns out that's not the case. But I mean, I had my doubts when I was getting all this advice at the time, like, wow, maybe this is what I do, and I really love how it sounds, but we'll see if they're right, you know. You know, they're not, but...
Right. And even right out of the bat with Mr. Jones, that was somebody you named in there, and that was a huge hit. So obviously they were wrong.
Well, by being Mr. Jones, though, it seems like it could be... you could be talking about every
anybody.
man. There's a lot of songs with that in it,
Yes.
which is one of the things I thought was kind of cool about writing it, was that I knew 2 or 3 other Mr. Jones songs, and... that it was almost like I was talking about my friend, but it could come off just the same way A to Z is about me and Zoe, but it's also about
be somebody in your life.
the gamut of stuff,
Yes.
you know. And that by using Mr. Jones, it was kind of in rock and roll an everyman kind of replacement pronoun, sort of, you know.
So in that aspect,
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
I mean, I like that it moves people and makes a difference in their lives. It's always a little still a surprise. It's just not.
Yeah.
It just feels it does feel personal to me. I mean, I wouldn't want to do anything differently, but I could see that they might have been right at the time when they were saying that to me. It just didn't seem like good advice anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys, Counting Crows, have been together for 30 years. You know, not many changes in the lineup, been together for decades. Is there a key to your creativity and longevity there, or do you just pray for the best?
Well, I think we've done our own thing from the beginning. We kind of run Counting Crows like we're an indie band on an indie label. We just have done our own thing. We signed with Geffen in the beginning because they gave us complete creative control.
Nice.
So we didn't even have much input then, before our first album, and certainly none afterwards. You know, we never tried to like chase success by, well, that worked last time, we should do it again. It was always like, well, what are we fascinated by? What are we interested in? What do we want to do? To me, like, Counting Crows songs are whatever we want them to be. They don't have to be any style. They can be all kinds of different stuff. You know, from like hard rock, like Angels of the Silences, or Boxcars on this record, to, you know, Virginia Through the Rain on this record, which is really beautiful, or a waltz like Butterfly in Reverse from Hard Candy. You know, like that. The music can be anything we want it to be, and we've always just sort of chased that. We looked for producers that were doing interesting things we like to do. You know, when we made the first album, there's a lot of pressure after that to like do another record with T-Bone Burnett, who's great, you know, but I was interested in other things. I knew we had a new guitar player who was louder, and I wanted to work with Gil Norton, who made those Pixies records I loved, you know, and we just sort of chased that.
You wanted to try different things.
Yeah, I mean, we changed the set list every night on stage because I don't want to play songs I don't want to play. If there's a night where you don't want to play something and you play it anyways, you're going to start hating your songs.
It's
It
true.
doesn't seem like a good recipe. And also, I think the biggest thing is that I just decided, look, there's a reason, you could find a reason why you deserve more. Anyone can. In any band, any member can find a reason why,
Good point.
to justify why they deserve more. But you got to figure out what's important to you. And I realized early on, I really love being in a band. I don't want to be a solo artist. And I really like being in this band. And so I just made this band a priority. Like the first priority whenever anything was going on was all these guys, you know, and me, you know. But like, I'm in charge, but that feels like, treat that like a responsibility more than the right to do anything you want to do, you know, like.
Right.
And I feel like I always made that the first priority. Everybody's got to be happy. Otherwise, you know, like you can decide you need more and deserve more, but if there's not enough for everybody else, you're not going to have a band. You know, and I think that everyone's pretty happy in our band.
That's
And we
great.
bicker and stuff, of course, because we're like, you know, siblings and we've
Your
been together
family.
for a long time. But nobody's aching to get out. That did happen early on. There are people like you could just tell you're aching to get out of here.
Yeah,
I can
it's
see,
so
and we're
lovely.
gonna give you your wish. You know,
Yes.
that happened a little bit, but that's been a long time.
Yeah.
You know,
So going back to August and everything after, do you hear echoes of that in this? I know you've changed, you've done many different things along the way. Is there anything relating to that first album in this album, do you think?
oh, I don't know.
Or
I
does
mean,
it
like I said, I think
bring-
that I relate with Love from A to Z to Round Here in my head. It doesn't sound
Right.
anything like Round Here.
No, it doesn't.
But in my head, it has a thematic kind of like definition that. I don't know. I don't really think about other records much. I just think about
Okay,
what we're doing
just
at
go
the
for it.
time, especially that record in a way, because we didn't really know what we were doing then, and it feels a lot slicker than other records to me.
Yeah.
The songs are great on that record, but I love every record so much, and I don't go back listening to them very much.
Interesting.
I certainly haven't listened to that record specifically in a few decades, probably. I have gone back and listened to Hard Candy and certainly This Desert Life, because there's something about This Desert Life and its quirky weirdness that it's the record that everybody always wants to play the songs from in concert, in the band. When we're making the set list up each night,
Yeah.
and guys are talking to me about what they want to play, it's always stuff from that
From
record.
that album.
Everybody loves those songs.
Is that intentional that you haven't gone back to listen to August and everything after, or just it just?
No, I just don't think I've thought about it in a while. I don't know that I've gone back to listen to any of them really recently. Maybe This Desert Life and Hard Candy last year I actually did, because I wanted to look at some songs on that, and my girlfriend's been bugging me to play Amy Hit the Atmosphere, and that's one where I have to learn the piano part to play it, because I play piano on that one, and that's a hassle, and so it's been 3 or 4 years of me procrastinating that. But
Got it. So is there anybody today that you're inspired by? Any new bands or any? I know Gangs of Youth. You said.
Yeah, I mean, I think
basically
that
inspired this album.
their record is. I mean, and I put homages to them, like little Easter eggs throughout it. I took some lyrical clips from them and put it in several songs. There's a line in. There's a repeated line in the chorus of "Under the Aurora" about humming. Where's there a place for me among the millions humming and humming and humming away? And that is. The humming and humming away is specifically taken from a song of theirs called "The Man Himself," which is the one that got me to go, "Wow, these aren't as good as that is."
Oh, I love that.
So I definitely put that in there specifically to honor that. Yeah, there's a lot of young artists that are great singer-songwriters. My friend Stephen Kellogg is brilliant. He's out touring with this guy Will Varley in England right now. I think Frank Turner's amazing. Chris from Dashboard just sent me 12 songs that he's written for his new album about 2 or 3 weeks ago that were out of this world. And he played me a new one in the car on the way to the studio today that I thought was just killer. He's just doing such great stuff.
That's awesome.
I got really knocked out by the Taylor Swift tour a couple years ago when we went to see that. I mean, I was so blown away by the whole conceptualization of that tour and how just for a big tour, how intimate and moving it was. The combination of like the sets, the music, the video, the really insightful video design they used to accentuate her songs. Like I got really knocked out by that, and I got really obsessed with The One. And I actually without telling anybody, kind of went backstage and started figuring out how to play it on one of the pianos backstage. And then I came out on stage one night and we were supposed to play Long December, and I had figured out this version of The One that I could climax at the end of it into the opening of Long December. And so I started doing that for most of last year, which I could tell. Nuts? Yeah, it's about 3/4 of the way through the first verse every night. A whole like scattershot group of young girls scream 3/4 of the way through the first verse because I play it differently, almost an inside out version of it. Yeah. But about 3/4 of the way through the first verse, they seem to all together realize what's going on and they scream. I'm sure they're like elbowing their mother or something to tell her, I really love that song, but that definitely had an effect on me. Like that tour was so moving and
it changed lives. It changed the economy. I mean,
it did.
That was a little insane. But.
It got me to go back to folklore, which I had not listened to in a while, and I hadn't really like gone down there and really ground down on it. And it got me to go back and do that, and then I just got really obsessed with The One.
That's a great album altogether.
It really is, yeah.
So decades from now, people are talking about the Counting Crows. What is something that they could say that would make you think we did it right, or I did it right, or
wow, late in their career, they turned out to be the biggest band in the world. That would be really cool. I would consider that doing it right. I don't know. I would just like people to, look at all the work over the course of the career, listen to the records. I would really like people to go back and rediscover some of those earlier records, like This Desert Life and Hard Candy, and Somewhere Under Wonderland especially, because there's songs on them that I wish I could play all the time. I wish the audience was more engaged on those songs, because we had points where we were like the center of the universe and all our songs were what they want to hear. I'd like to hear that response, like when we play Palisades Park in a concert. I wish the audience had been waiting for that, the way I'm waiting for some obscure song at a Springsteen show. I wish they were waiting for that song, and I hope it happens with this record. Maybe, I'd like to open a show with Love from A to Z or Spaceman, and it'd be cool if the opening guitar chords of A to Z or that the drum loop in Spaceman, it'd be great if that inspired excitement in the audience. You never know, your audience is getting older, they don't listen to as much music as they used to, and they're not obsessing over you. They might not even get your new record. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But who knows?
But maybe you'll find new fans and new people will.
Oh yeah, I don't care if it's the old fans. I'm fine with new fans. I have no interest in who it is. I just want them to be excited when that song starts up. I would like to have more songs that people rediscover so we can play them, because I'm not really interested in playing the same songs every night. I want to play there's so many colors and textures and sides to our music, and I'm in love with all of it and fascinated with all of it, and I kind of want to play all of it. And I love Mr. Jones too and Round Here, but I really want to play Butterfly in Reverse and Spaceman in Tulsa and Palisades Park. I want them to be excited that I wrote this 10-minute song. Or the Suite. I would like them to be really excited about the Suite. That would be really cool. Like it's like Tommy. I wish they were getting freaked out.
Yes. I think Spaceman in Tulsa is one of those songs that's going to really hit.
It'd be cool
it's
if it
so
did.
Catchy, and it's just well written, the lyrics, and it's about change and transformation, and I think a lot of people can relate to that one.
Well, it'd be so great. I don't think about this stuff when I'm making records, because when you're making records, you're just making the greatest thing you've ever done. And there's been times in my life where all anyone wanted to hear was whatever I was working on. And so every time you do this, you're like, they're going to be so excited by this, And so Spaceman seems to me like, wow, this just turned out so well. It was so much more than even I dreamed about when I wrote it. Like when it turned, the way we kind of, even in the demos, we could tell. The band had so many great ideas that changed it. I just, I'd love to see it be great.
Yeah, yes, I think it will. From my lips to God's ears. But and you mentioned going, different sounds. You don't like to do the same sound over and over. Any possibility of a country Counting Crows ever?
Well, it's funny. So many of our roots are in that. Like, we have a lot of songs that could easily be country songs. Goodnight Elizabeth is a country song. On the covers album, we did Graham Parsons tunes. We did Nitty Gritty. Did we do Nitty Gritty Dirt Band? I can't remember if we did that in the end. So it's a big part of our roots. I guess I just never think about my album being any kind of album.
A specific album.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know whether we make an album full of country music. That might be not what everybody else thinks of as country music, because Steve Earle and Willie Nelson, Dolly Parton, they're huge parts of my life.
Yes.
Townes Van Zandt, Roseanne Cash and Johnny. I was obsessed with Roseanne Cash growing up.
She's fabulous.
Yeah, and I sang on Nancy Griffith's record. Nancy was a friend of mine, and she was genius, and I was obsessed with her too. But if we made an album that sounded like all those people, or Patty Griffith or someone, I don't know that anyone in Nashville would consider it a country
They wouldn't
album.
call it a country album.
I'm not even sure that
Probably
that
is.
works. Would they accept that? Like, do they accept Cowboy Carter? I don't know. Beyonce's got enough fans that's going to be a big album either way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you could try it.
Yeah.
So from this album, if we listen to it, really listen to the lyrics, really dig in, what do we learn about Adam Duritz and the Counting Crows?
Well, that's what I'm like. I don't know. I don't know how to sum it up. The best way I could find to express those opinions about myself was those songs. That was...
Okay.
That, I never know how to translate a song. As John Ashbery said, translations of my poetry are just... And now I can't remember what he said. They turned them into less eloquent versions of themselves. That's what it was.
Okay.
I wrote a paper in college once, and the teacher said, I wrote it in a very poetic way. Like, I was just starting to write a lot of songs, and I was starting to write that way in my essays too. And the teacher's like, I don't even understand what you're trying to say here, so I can't grade it. You're going to need to write another paper to explain this to me. And it was the class where we had been reading John Ashbery. It was like an art and literature class, and art and poetry. And so when I wrote the whole other paper to explain my paper, at the end of it, I wrote, but as John Ashbery said, translations of my poetry just turned into a less eloquent version of themselves. And what that came off as is fucking obnoxious to the teacher. She was not pleased at all.
I bet.
And I could tell, like, she just thought, this guy is a complete asshole. And who is he to write in, like, try and write an essay in, like, a poetic form? What an idiot. Like, and then me reminding her of a quote that she had said to us just really pissed her off even more.
Did you fail?
No, she gave it it went from an incomplete to a C- or something like that. It was passing, but it was, but I could tell I'd really pissed her off. And she said something to me when she handed it back to me, and I was like, yeah, that was the wrong quote to use. It seemed so apt when I wrote it, because she had been talking about critics asking him to explain his poetry, and him like pulling that one out, and so I thought it was perfect. But then I realized that the critics probably didn't like it either. It wasn't my wisest moment, and I've had a habit of that throughout my career. Yeah.
Well, look at you now. Right?
Yeah, here I am.
Who can complain?
Yeah.
So are you writing currently? Is there more in this brain that's coming after this, or are you just going to let this play out and see what
Not right now. Because we got a lot of stuff to do right now. There's a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't really been feeling like... I don't write a lot. I write like every few years I'll just write the record.
Okay.
You know, I don't write a lot of extra songs, maybe one sometimes, you know. But I don't know why I changed that way, but I did. And it just seemed to, it's been a long time since I was one of those guys who would have like, you know, a bunch of songs and then, like Chris has like 30 songs right now. And I don't know how he's going to deal with it because all the ones I've heard are really good.
Enough to cut it.
And I was like, how do you even make these decisions? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, well, I got these. I hope you like these because I got these.
Well, this is a great album. I love it.
Thank you.
Butter Miracle, the complete suites. Out
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point. Yes, don't
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah.
Out May 9th. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much.